All right, Rod Khleif, welcome back to the REI Diamond Show. How are you doing today?
Good, buddy. It's great to see you again, man. And it's so cool to know that you're right up the street. But what's really cool is we're both wearing the same freaking watch, which you
Yeah, we are.
noticed. We both have these gorgeous Hublot Big Bang watches on, our favorite brand, and so that was really crazy. It's the first time that's ever happened to me. So very cool. Well, it's great to see you, man. Thanks for having me back.
Hey, you too. So, if listeners want to go check out the original episode, I want to say this was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, but the title was "Making Then Losing 50 Million Bucks with Rod Khleif." And I hate to brand you the money losing guy because that's not who you are and you recovered from that. But why don't you give any listeners who may not have caught that original episode, Rod, give them a brief rundown of
Sure.
what that looks like and then how your business is growing today.
Well, sure, sure. Well, first of all, it sucked. Okay, it was no fun at all. Let me say that. But let me back up a little bit, Dan, real quick, and just give a brief history on me. So I'm an immigrant. I was born in the Netherlands. Wooden shoes and windmills. Immigrated when I was 6 with my brother Albert, and my mother's Vansha. Ended up in Denver, Colorado, where we lived for 30 years. Struggled initially. I wore hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army. We ate expired food. Believe it or not, they had a store that sold expired food. Drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning. I mean, really struggled. But my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she was a bit of an entrepreneur. And she's the reason I got into real estate because she used that babysitting money and bought the house across the street from us when I was about 14 for 30 grand. Then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. It had gone up in value. And I said, "What? You made 20?" This is when 20 grand was a lot of money. Okay. And I said, "You made 20 grand. You didn't do anything." Forget college. I'm getting into real estate. So I got into real estate and I was a real estate broker. Actually, I was an actual broker. I could have my own office. I was smart enough not to have my own office, but I could back then. Now they got smart. You need some experience to be a broker, but I did it through education. But my first year in real estate, I made maybe $8,000. My second year, maybe 10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met somebody that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology and how really 80 to 90% of your success in anything is your mindset and psychology. And he was a broker actually that I worked for at the time. He's the one that I was smart enough to go work for. But anyway, fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. I own over 5,000 apartments now. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God of the universe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was what you were alluding to. I lost $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast, which I'm blessed to say now is the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world. We just broke 20 million downloads. And what I'm known for talking about is mindset and psychology. The mindset and psychology it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place, but then even probably more importantly is the mindset it took to recover from that big of a loss. And so yeah, that's my story. We can chat about some of those mindset strategies if you'd like briefly, or we can roll into whatever you want, buddy.
Yeah, let's pull that apart. Let's talk about the
Okay.
psychology. I think a lot of people hear psychology and are thinking, woo woo, sit on the couch. And I
Yeah.
know there was times even in my career where I didn't give it the same acknowledgement that I do today.
Mm.
And I probably take it for granted sometimes that I've
Mhm.
had some really influential mentors who've helped adjust that in the background without me being very intentional. I wasn't the
Mhm.
Tony Robbins guy. I'm not the, write down the gratitude list guy. I'm not the miracle morning guy. But
Mm.
I do have now an appreciation for the psychology that must be constructed in order to succeed at an above average level, right?
Yeah. Now, well, I'll tell you, I spent 20 years with Tony. I was on his team for 8 years, which had a huge impact on my life. Hal Elrod is a friend. He was just on my podcast for the second time a few weeks ago, Miracle Morning guy. And so, yeah, I immerse myself in that stuff because I need it. I need the juice myself personally. And, so let me give you some quick tips from a psychological standpoint, because I believe we're headed into an economic you-know-what storm. I think the proverbial you-know-what is going to hit the fan here. I know that it is in commercial real estate. There's so much debt coming due, and that debt either has to refinance or sell, and neither one of those options look very good right now. So that said, mindset is super important because fear is out there. It is out there. And we can drill down on that more later, but let's talk about the mindset for a second. So when I lost everything, the first thing I did was I reassociated with my goals, what I wanted and why I wanted it, and that's how I got the stuff to begin in the first place. You got to create that burning desire, that hunger. You really got to want it. And so, if you come to one of my boot camps, and I'll give you guys a heck of a deal if you want, your peeps a heck of a deal if they want to come. I've got a virtual one coming up January 6th and 7th. But the first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what it is you want. And so, and by the way, if you're not interested in doing the boot camp, every year on New Year's Day, I do a goal setting workshop. And if you go to rodslinks.com, it's down at the bottom there. It's free. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. There's a guide you can download. Again, it's rodslinks.com. If you're driving, text the word links to 72345. And at the bottom is that goal setting workshop. Here's the thing, Dan, and you know this, people spend more time planning a freaking Christmas party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life, right? You got to know what it is you want, and you got to know why you want it. So, okay, go to Rod's Links, do the goal setting workshop, or better yet, come to my boot camp, my virtual one in January 6th or 7th. But regardless, you got to do your goals. It starts with that. Then the second piece I had to do when I reassociated with my goals in 2009 was I had to make a decision to get out of my pity party. And you as well, you listening, you got to make a decision let's say you haven't started investing in real estate yet, or you need to take it to the next level. That requires a decision. And the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. It's not dipping your toe in the water. It's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You make a decision, it is freaking done. And then when you do that, you're like a train on a track and you're committed. If you're just wishy-washy, you're going to get knocked off track. And so the decision is the next piece. The piece after that is you got to take the first step. And I don't know about you, Dan, I imagine you have a lot of analytical listeners like I do, and you know who you are if you're listening, and I love you, and you're very successful in this business, but I also know most of you have to check off every single box before you make a move, and you can't do that. You've got to take that first step in faith. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed. But you don't see the whole path sometimes. But you got to take that first step. And I'll give you a quick analogy before I move on to the next piece here. And that is, you can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlight only seeing 60 feet in front of you. You know you can make it. You know other people have done it before you. You may have some obstacles, but it's the same way with any initiative you take in your own life, certainly with multifamily real estate. Here's the thing. If you're analytical and you're afraid of failure, don't fear failure, fear regret. Fear regret much more than failure. There was this nurse in Australia that a hospice nurse took care of people that were about to die. And she asked him a question, Dan, and the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it, something like The 5 Regrets of Dying. And the number one regret was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, because maybe I got caught up in analysis paralysis or whatever. Her name was Bronnie Ware, by the way, if you want to look it up. But the point is, don't fear failure, fear regret. The next thing I'll talk about briefly is fear and limiting beliefs. Okay. So what is fear? The most successful people on the planet have fear. Is it F everything and run, or is it, false evidence appearing real? I believe it's false evidence appearing real for sure, but I like to equate it to face everything and rise. And so, so again, the most successful people on the planet have fear, but they push through in spite of it. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Action mitigates fear. So take action if you're in a fearful place. The second thing is limiting beliefs. When I immigrated this country, I didn't speak English, and I've got a little prop I want to show you here. Hang on one second. So I didn't speak English and I got thrown into school. So I discovered what bullies were for the first time. And then my mom, God bless her, proud Dutch woman she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in these wooden shoes. These are the actual shoes, okay? So I got my ass kicked again. And I had to wear those leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. Oh yeah, so, oh man, that was like crack cocaine for the bullies. And, and then I get chased home from school and there was a bully lived down the end of our street and she chased him off with a fly swatter. So the next day I got my butt kicked and I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? And so a lot of people have these limiting beliefs. And all I would tell you is there's a reason the acronym for belief systems is BS. Other things like I'm not smart enough, I'm not old enough, I'm not young enough, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough time. Again, the acronym is BS because they are BS, 99% of them. But we believe they're real, but they have no basis in fact. So if you have one and you're aware of it consciously, pull it out into the daylight, look at it, recognize that it's BS, and you'll be able to push past it. I used to be afraid to raise my hand in a class of 10 kids, and now I speak in front of thousands and thousands of people a year, and it's because I dealt with that limiting belief. Next piece is focus. So the most successful people on the planet have the highest degree of focus. And wherever your focus goes is where your energy is going to go. And whatever you focus on gets larger. And so I'm going to tell you, don't focus on the news right now, or God forbid politics, because, it's just going to stress you out. So you want to focus on the good stuff. On my podcast, if you go to Rod's links, there's a link to my podcast there. I do a clip every week called Own Your Power. It's a motivational clip. You give me 5 minutes a week, I will juice you. There's hundreds of them there. They're very powerful, but bring in the good stuff. Stand guard at the door to your mind. Don't get caught up in all the noise and the crap that's going on in the news. And remember this, the news, they are not public service organizations. They are for-profit organizations. They're not there to inform. We won't go down the rabbit hole of censorship and propaganda that's going on there. But the bottom line is stand guard at the door to your mind and bring in the good stuff. And they asked Mother Teresa, this is a great focus example. They asked Mother Teresa if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. You see, it's kind of the same thing, but it's not. It's your focus. And I get people that call me and say, how do I get out of student loan debt? And I say, wrong question. How do you make so much money that debt's irrelevant? So I listen to 2 podcasts, Dan. I listen to Joe Rogan and I listen to Tim Ferriss. I try to get both sides of the aisle. They're both definitely on different sides of the aisle there, and I'm definitely on one side as well. But on Tim Ferriss's show, he interviews probably the best of the best in the world in different walks of life. Best athletes like Michael Phelps, NFL players, NBA players, actors like Ed Norton, Hugh Jackman, Jamie Foxx, Arnold Schwarzenegger, best CEOs on the planet, or biggest CEOs on the planet like Zuckerberg, billionaires like Ray Dalio, and he deconstructs their success. Fascinating, intelligent conversations. But I started to hear a pattern, Dan. They almost all meditate. What does meditation enhance? Focus, right? So don't underestimate the importance of building your focus. And I don't know about you, but I'll get caught up on Netflix and I'll be scrolling through social media while I'm watching a movie. That kills your focus. Now I'm guilty of it as well, but your brain's making these micro decisions. So think about that. Focus is important. I got a couple more if I have time here. Do I have time to do a couple more here? Okay.
Good to go.
So the next one is playing to strengths. Okay. In our multifamily business, there are a lot of different hats you can wear, but you got to play to your strengths. Okay. So there's the finding the deals, there's underwriting the deals. If you're an analytical, there's asset management after you buy them. If you're process driven or management driven, there's a lot of different hats you can wear, but you got to play to your strengths. Your strengths are your greatest assets. Don't try to maximize your weaknesses. Success comes much faster if you play to your strengths and then you align, hire, or partner for your weaknesses. Because if you're playing to your strengths, you're going to love what you do, number one, and you're never going to work another day in your life because you're in the zone, you're in the quan, like in Jerry Maguire. You're loving your life, and if you're doing that, not only are you going to love it, and you're not working because it's play, work is play, but you're going to be passionate. And to influence people in anything, you need passion. And if you're playing in what's your strength, you're going to be passionate, and you'll be able, certainly in the multifamily business, you're influencing sellers and brokers and in potential investors. And frankly, in life, you need influence. And if you're passionate, you'll have the ability to do that. And that passion gives you that. And that passion also is the fuel. So don't settle. Don't play in doing something that you don't enjoy. Figure out what juices you, and that's the piece you do in this multifamily business or whatever business you get into. And I got to tell you, with the soup about to hit the fan, there's going to be lots of different places you can make money. I believe businesses are going on sale. I think everything's going on sale. Businesses, certainly every asset class of real estate. So if you're listening and you haven't made a move yet, you got to pick your vehicle. You got to decide how you're going to take advantage of what's coming, because it could be the greatest transfer of wealth we see in our lifetimes if it's as bad as some people say it's going to be. Elon Musk is quoted as saying, they're lying to you. The crash is going to be much bigger than they say. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, said that it could be as bad as the Great Depression. So I think it's going to be ugly. I think they're going to prop it up to the election, because they have to. If they, again, I don't want to go political, but I believe they're going to prop it up until the election. But after the election, watch out. That's my opinion. And then you've got all that commercial debt coming due by the end of next year, which is also a huge issue. But the bottom line is, play to your strengths and be passionate. And that passion breeds creativity. It breeds innovation. It minimizes or even eliminates fear. But you got to play to your strengths. The next piece is your peer group. When I was losing everything in 2008 and 9, I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership. And at the time, it was like 130 grand all in. I mean, it was a big deal partnership. These are all very wealthy people in there. And I was around people that were killing it while I was losing everything. I mean, they were thriving in that crash. And they're like, get up, you big wussy, 50 million schmillion, go make something happen. That's who you want to be around when the soup hits the fan, right? And so get around people that want more out of life. Who you hang out with is who you become. And see, the sad reality is most people default to people they went to school with or they work with. And those people may not have your best interest at heart. They may be afraid of losing you or afraid of feeling less than if you succeed. And sometimes it's family. So I'm going to tell you, love your family, but proactively choose your peers, because who you hang out with is who you become. And you want to be around people that think what you think is hard is easy, people that want more out of life. I've got a coaching program that called My Warriors, and they now own upwards of 180,000 units that we know, between 180 and 190,000 units. And I've only been teaching 5 years, and I am super freaking proud of that. But here's the thing. The reason they're so successful is they hold each other accountable. They push each other. They praise each other. They validate each other. And so get in a group like that. If you want to do this business or any business, get in a group that wants more, that's got the success that you're looking for. And it's going to help you shorten the learning curve and shorten the time frame for your success exponentially. So you want to get around people like that. Like if you're going to play tennis, do you want to play somebody that's better than you or worse than you, right? I mean, you know the answer. It's the same thing with this. And so the second to the last piece here is problems and failure. Okay. I don't call them failures. I call them seminars. And it's only a failure if you don't get up or you don't learn the lesson, right? That was a $50 million seminar. It was a big one. Don't get me wrong. It was a freaking big one, but we fail our way to success. Problems and failures, frankly, are feedback. Sometimes they're gifts. If you come to my boot camp, can I mention my boot camp real quick and just a quick synopsis of it? Dan,
yeah, and when you do, I'm gonna talk about it too, real quick.
Oh, thank you. So I've got a virtual boot camp coming up January 6th and 7th. It's 2 days. It's on a weekend. You can do it in your underwear at home. And you can come for $97. Okay, I don't sell anything there, so it's 16 to 18 hours of training, nothing being sold. If you go to Rod's links. Again, or text links to 72345, rodslinks.com. There's a bunch of free resources there. My goal setting workshops there. There's a bunch of free stuff there. But the bootcamp site is there. Now, when you check out, use the code DIAMONDS, okay? So that we know you heard it on Dan's podcast here, DIAMONDS. And you come for $97, kind of a no-brainer. So, and I teach every aspect of the business, picking your team, evaluating your team, picking a market, evaluating the market, finding deals, evaluating those deals, financing those deals. I have a syndication attorney do the syndication piece. I have a mortgage broker do the financing piece. They're both world-class operators, and property management, asset management, you name it. So, and of course, because I'm big on mindset and psychology, which is why my students are so successful, I'm going to spend time on that too. So, yeah, that's my
So
boot camp.
yeah, I did the boot camp in 2021, and by the end of 2021, I think I bought something like 25 units that year. I
Wow.
found that apartment investing is not really my forte. My heart is
Mm,
not necessarily in taking it to thousands of units.
mm.
I still own most of those today, but right on the heels of taking action from going to the boot camp, what was it, 2 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. That's why I own apartments now.
Wow, I appreciate that, buddy. I appreciate that, and I love what I do. I think you can tell. I talk about passion. I think you can tell I'm pretty passionate about what I do here. I just absolutely love it. But thank you. So back to failures. I went to a mastermind and I met the billionaire owner of Spanx. Sarah Blakely is her name, and for guys, that's the women's undergarments that hold stuff together under their clothes. But she started with $5,000, and she's a billionaire now. She's in Forbes as a billionaire, and she told me at this event that her dad used to ask her and her brother on about a weekly basis, what have you failed at this week? And I thought, what an awesome question to ask them. So, ask your kids so they don't fear failure. Unfortunately, I didn't get that memo until my kids were past really listening to me. But if you've got kids that are still impressionable, take the time to ask them, what have they failed at, and to not fear failure. So anyway, that's pretty much it, buddy. I appreciate you letting me add some value on the psychology of this business. Yeah, let's maybe get into the market or whatever.
Yeah, well stated here. So I'm going to go back
Thank
to
you.
number two, and that was the decision to shift the mindset. So I remember in the last 2 years, I consciously made a decision to shift the mindset. And one was 2020. I think it was like probably middle of April. So the shutdown just started.
Yeah.
Deals were falling apart, and I could feel the fear. And it's like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do? This felt like 2008, 2009 all over again. And I
Yeah.
remember eating breakfast, and I got this picture like Jesus on the boat with the storm. And for those that don't know the story, he's riding with his disciples. The storm's going. All the disciples are full of fear, and he's asleep. Jesus is asleep on the boat, and they're, oh my God, we're gonna die. They wake him up, but Master, we're gonna die. And he said, well, what are you so afraid of? Like, have faith. And he talks to the storm and tells it to just be calm, and then everything calms down. I look up as I'm eating breakfast and I said, oh, this is a storm. And I made the decision in that moment that we were going to thrive and succeed in the new market. We were going to figure out how to do it. We were going to take those first steps in faith, and we were going to succeed. Our
Nice.
company doubled in transaction volume and profit in that following 12-month period. Um, the second one was probably as the interest rates were hiking, I want to say maybe summer 2022. And it was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, here it comes again.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
somewhere in there, I don't remember it to the exact moment, like I was eating breakfast, but I do remember the shift. And we went from, we're afraid of the market and everything is not going to work, to, okay, we're going to just readjust, and we're going to find a way to win in this marketplace. And we made that decision. I made the decision, and then some of the other rest of the team kind of got on board with it, and we thrived again right after that. And it was amazing, Rod, to see various people on the team kind of getting on board with that decision. It probably took us 3 to 6 months for almost everybody, if not everybody on the team, probably
To get
25 people.
buy-in.
Yeah, to get buy-in, and they
Hmm.
probably had their own moments of decision. Okay, all right, yeah, we are going to win. This is great. I see some evidence the other guy's winning, and I'm going to win too, right?
Yeah.
So I want to take the moment of decision. If you can pinpoint that when you made the mental pivot, if you will, and if you could like describe in detail the mental pivot from the, oh no, I'm losing $50 million to time to rebuild.
Yeah, well, I will tell you, I hid under a rock for a couple of months with a little eyeball poking out, feeling sorry for myself. And I was worried that I was going to make that loss my story, like my identity, woe is me. And you got to be very careful what you allow to be your identity. In fact, anything you put the words I am in front of is an identity statement. And I've got, things on my wall down in my exercise room below me here in my office that say, I am success. I am the world's greatest husband. I am a business genius. And these aren't ego statements. These are aspirational statements. But the words I am are very powerful. And there's no greater force in the human psyche than to remain consistent with how we identify ourselves. So I use these. If I'm in fear, I use affirmations. I am courage. I am determination. And I used to run down the street yelling this stuff. In fact, my kids help me in my boot camps. And that's the question they get most often. Did he really do that crap where he'd be running? They're like, oh yeah, now I've got an exercise room and nobody has to suffer through it. But yeah, because when you yell an affirmation like that with everything you've got, it gets into the fiber of your being, and it short circuits any disempowering emotion that you have and just juices you. It's been very powerful for me. But anyway, so the decision moment, it's hard for me to, I've got a bad memory. It's hard for me to pin the exact moment, but I can tell you, I'll give you a better example. Okay. I had lost it all once before. I don't talk about this publicly. Maybe at my boot camp, I mentioned it possibly, but where I lived in the equivalent of about $1 million house, in my 20s, early 20s. I had a Rolls Royce, I had a Maserati, I had a Pantera. These are old, Pantera's an old exotic car, beautiful car. But I had these cars and I lost everything the first time. Okay, that house went into foreclosure. I had to sell the cars to make payroll, and it was an ugly time. And I ended up having to paint houses to have enough money to eat. So I went from $1 million house, Rolls Royce, Pantera, Maserati, to painting a house to have enough money to eat. And I remember my mom coming to me and brought me groceries. Okay. And I was painting a house and I had a meltdown. I mean, I just cried. I'm like, fuck this, and threw the paintbrush down. And it was like a pivotal epiphany moment. I'm like, I'm not doing this for another second. And I bought 500 houses right after that. Okay. And I picked myself back up and made it happen. So I will tell you, sometimes disgust, and it may have been disgust that was the pivotal moment. I don't remember, honestly, and in the '08 crash, it may have been disgust, but disgust is a very powerful motivator. It certainly was that first time. So don't underestimate the power of that emotion, disgust, to get leverage on you. But the key is to get that leverage. You got to get the leverage, which is why if you do my goal setting workshop, we have you write down why you want those goals, because the why is the driver. That's the impetus. And I have you do positive and negative reasons why. Because I want the house, because I want to show what my kids what success looks like. I want to retire my husband or wife, whatever it is. That's the positive stuff. But then I have you put some pain in there if you don't achieve it. So I don't feel like a failure. So I don't fail my kids, because we'll do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. But so the key is to find the leverage. So I didn't really fully answer your question, but hopefully I gave some insights as to how other people could utilize these leverage opportunities to have an epiphany and to make a shift. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wanted to highlight that because you're going to make a decision no matter what. And you may not be consciously aware of sitting there under the rock with one eye peering out, scared. And you don't realize that entire time, moment by moment, you're deciding to stay in there by default. And so I'm sure there's somebody listening somewhere on here who has a decision they're going to make in the next 24 to 48 hours, or maybe the next 7 to 10 days. And they're saying, oh my God, it was so simple. I just had to decide that this is done. And now I'm going to march forward toward the cure, toward the fix, toward the better life, toward improving, right? Instead of the default decision. So one other thing, if I could touch on here for a moment.
But let me interject. Let me interject one thing. So, like you just said, sometimes no decision is a decision.
That's right.
Right. Okay. All right.
That's right.
Yeah.
In fact, that everybody is deciding. One of my mentors wrote me an email yesterday, and he said, you're choosing to be poor. He said, you're sitting there on welfare. Not to me, but an example out there, real probably, like you would say, just politically charged one side or the other. He said, your own welfare. You're unemployed because you're deciding to be that way. And you may be ignorant of the fact that you're making that choice, but the people who are no longer in those scenarios, who have been there eating the powdered milk, having mom bring the groceries,
Mhm.
they made the conscious decision to do it. And
Yeah.
that's great news because it means you can control the direction of your destiny. You don't have to be, living in this victim mentality.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so you touched on the peer group and you were talking a little bit about Facebook and Netflix at the same time. And I remember uh, on my Facebook feed, there's a dichotomy. And it's funny because what I see from the family is a certain way, good job and, we're living a good life and that whole thing. And it's like the family's posts are definitely in this one kind of column or characterization, and then because of who I am in real estate, I have this much larger audience and group of friends, and I probably like their posts a lot more. And it's more like what you're talking about, Rod. It's
Mhm.
big goals, and now I'm buying a business, and
Mhm.
here's the nice car if that's what you're about. And guys are getting on there and they're challenging you in their posts. And I feel, I don't know, empathy for the people who maybe have a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed or a Twitter feed that has curated itself by their own decisions to like certain kinds of content that might be more in that politically charged realm or conspiracy theory type of realm. And it's like some of those people are challenged by their beliefs being reconstructed from that feed, but you can actually make a conscious decision to like reprogram your social media by like seeking out the kind of people that might be like mentors. So I'm always thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, I'm glad I went on Facebook while I was eating lunch today because I got this inspiring little nugget of this guy I barely know who's a friend of mine who put this like bold punch me in the face kind of post. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't think everybody's peer group in social media is going to have that same positive effect. But the good news is you can actually decide to design the Facebook feed or whichever other social
Or
you're on.
TikTok, or yeah, any of them. Yeah, the algorithms are so freaking powerful. They hook you in. If it's if it's content that you enjoy, they'll suck you in. To me, it's almost insane how powerful they are. Because I used to go on vacation. I'd read a book every day. I'm a very fast reader. I've got thousands of books in my library down below. And now I go on vacation, I'll get sucked into the social media thing. And I'm like, the whole day just went, I didn't get anything, unless there's some motivational stuff in there. But yeah, no, I totally agree with what you just said, bud.
Cool. So we got our psychology piece. So let's shift gears a little bit. I intentionally probably fear, maybe I didn't want to do the work. Maybe God has a different plan for me than own several thousand apartment units. But my hesitation whenever I went to pull the trigger on investing in private placements from apartment operators was I couldn't stomach the threat of rising interest rates. And this goes back to like 2015 when they were like very negligible and I didn't have the mathematical understanding of how interest rates and cap rates were related. And so they all looked to me like everyone was overpaying left and right in the apartment space. And now I know operators whose private placements have fallen apart. And I think that the chassis of the apartment syndication model has become very challenging. I think you have growth and I think you have rents and I think you have population, but that wasn't enough to make up for a lot of operators who are in the business. Are there
Well,
some steps that are
I don't
cautionary?
come. I don't completely agree with what you just said, but let me tell you what is happening right now. There are some rock star, very successful operators in trouble, and let me tell you why. And it's not that the chassis in a whole is a problem. I mean, rents have always gone up, and they'll continue to go up, and we've become a renter nation. The disparity between home prices and rent price and monthly rental amounts is huge right now, and hopefully will come back down because homeownership is such a desire for so many people. But what happened these last couple of years was operators in their greed, or I don't know if there's another word for it, but they would use bridge debt. Okay. And here's the problem with bridge debt. The bridge debt is like the single family equivalent of hard money loans. Okay. And so the bridge debt is very onerous debt. Okay. It's adjustable rate. Number one, it's also short term. It can be 1 to 3 years. Sometimes you can get 2 1-year extensions, but those extensions cost big money. And so a lot of these operators got this bridge debt because they had higher loan to values available to them than Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is conforming debt. And Fannie and Freddie started dropping their loan to value they were offering from 75 to 70 to 60 even. And so these operators would use the bridge debt to get the higher loan to value because they can show higher returns to investors the smaller the amount of money they're raising. Okay, the less amount of money they're raising, the higher returns they can show to investors. So they would use bridge debt. Well, here's the problem: nobody thought the rates would do what they did, and so these operators that have this bridge debt, some of them have seen their monthly lender reserve payments 10x, 20x. Like I found an operator in San Antonio with a deal that his monthly payment to his lender went from $8,000 a month to $80,000 a month to satisfy their ability to refinance when the debt came due. So here's why there's going to be some great deals. And we've got a great deal right now. Now that's a different scenario on the deal that I've got. This guy just ran out of money. It was a poor operator, horrible management. But a lot of operators, and I mean world-class operators, guys I really have a lot of respect for, got some of this bridge debt and they are struggling. Some of them are losing their deals to foreclosure. And of course, those investors in those deals are going to lose their money. It's not good, and it's a taint on the industry in general. But what people have to realize is because of the debt choice they made. It's not, it's not. There's the other reasons are not. That's the main reason that this is happening right now. And so, there's going to be incredible opportunity, but that bridge is very onerous. And here's the problem as well. Back in 2020, for these types of loans, typically they will require a rate cap, meaning that you're paying so the rate doesn't go up more than a certain percentage the time that you have that loan. Okay, so back in 2020, if you wanted a $100 million rate cap for 3 years, 3%, so your rate's not going to go up more than 3% over 3 years, that cost $23,000. That same rate cap today for 1 year, forget 3 years, is 2.3 million. Okay. So here's the problem. These operators that need to refinance because their bridge debt is coming due have to, first of all, they have to meet debt service coverage requirements, meaning, the lender is looking at the property's ability to service the debt. And if the rate's up, that ability is diminished in a big way. So that's a problem. Sometimes they'll have to put money in just to let a lender sniff the loan. But the big thing is the rate cap over on top of that. And so, there's going to be a lot of distressed sales. I've created a fund to buy these. We've got a deal right now in San Antonio. I've mentioned to you earlier, a mile away from another asset. We have a 296 unit asset in San Antonio that's killing it. This one's about a mile away. It's 200 units. And we're assuming low interest debt there. So we're getting a 4% interest rate there because the operator, horrible job managing it and taking care of it, and he ran out of money. So it's a screaming deal. This deal I was telling you was under contract about 3 months ago for $26 million. We're getting it for $20. The property right next door, same vintage, sold for $137,000 a door. We're getting this one for $100,000 a door. Just a screaming deal. And the units are big, and washer dryer hookups and fireplaces in every unit. And now we're going to have to put a lot of money into it to fix it up, almost $4 million. But it's on a lake. It's just a spectacular property. I mean, I'm just coming out of my skin. It's such a great deal. But anyway, those opportunities are starting to present themselves because of what's happening in the marketplace, and certainly in the bridge debt world, there's going to be a lot more of these types of opportunities as things, stay tough here. But the only glimmer of hope is that I do believe they're going to lower the interest rates prior to the election, and that might help some of these guys get out from under these deals. So yeah.
And to clarify, the chassis of all commercial real estate is the cost of debt.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
fair
the
enough.
chassis that
fair
fell
enough.
apart. That blew
fair
in
enough.
half.
That no question.
Right?
No question. Agreed.
Yeah.
Completely.
And
Agreed
so,
completely.
that said, right? You mentioned the debt choice and the bridge. I think the bridge was a highly risky
Well, see, it
debt
was put in
choice.
place. It was put in place to bridge the gap between a non-performing asset and a performing asset. You get the bridge debt because it doesn't have prepayment penalties. So you get the bridge debt to fix a place up. You get it stabilized, and then you refinance it with Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae conforming debt, which is long-term fixed rate debt. And that's what it was put in place for. But it got used for the loan to value issue that I was just talking about, and it was easier to get that kind of debt. And so, it was abused, frankly, is really what it was, out of greed. And, Warren Buffett's famous quote, be fearful when others are greedy. There's been a lot of greed these last few years, but the second part of that quote is be greedy when others are fearful. And fear is upon us now. So it's a time to, this is why I'm in a lot of cash right now. I have access to a lot of cash, and I've created this opportunity fund to take advantage of these. And by the way, if you're listening and you're an accredited investor, this San Antonio deal is a screaming deal. If you go to Rod's links, you'll see a webinar there that we're going to do on it. I don't know when this episode will go live, but the recording will be there if it's already happened. And we also have, by the way, if you're a passive investor, we've got an incredible resource at Rod's links, which is called the Cash Flow Club. And I've got tons of videos there, free books there about every aspect of this business. There's articles that I've written over the years. There's emails that I've sent to my investors. There's a ton of resources. We do a webinar every month. It's called the CRE Cash Flow Club. But if you go to Rod's links, where you text the word links to 72345, you'll see these links there for the Cash Flow Club and for this particular deal in San Antonio. And of course, the goal setting workshop I just talked about, and my boot camp site, and just all my crap is there on rodslinks.com. So go there and but that Cash Flow Club is an incredible resource if you're thinking of investing passively. I don't think there's anything else like it out there that to help educate you. Because here's the thing. Why would you give your hard-earned money to someone without having some basic understanding of what it is? I mean, people invest in the stock market with a stockbroker who's just a glorified salesperson. You need to understand the business. In fact, better yet, come to my boot camp, even if you're going to invest passively. Spend 2 days. Don't work your butt off earning all your money and give it to somebody and not have a clue on who you're investing with. Would you agree with me on that one, Dan?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So learn, at least have some basic understanding of what you're investing in. If it's multifamily, get to my boot camp, or at the very least, go to the Cash Flow Club and educate yourself a little bit. Yeah.
So one of the things you touched on was debt choice. We talked about bridge a little bit, but what would you suggest are the wisest debt choice? You mentioned Freddie and Fannie. Maybe elaborate on that, or maybe there's an additional answer there.
No, Freddie and Fannie are the best by far because they're it's called conforming debt. They're long-term fixed rate debt choices. Very often you have a period of interest-only debt in the initial part, which greatly enhances your returns. And it's non-recourse debt, meaning if they foreclose on you, they're only going to take the property. They're not going to come after you personally. So it's very desirable debt, which is why it's so prevalent in the multifamily space. And like this loan on this San Antonio asset we're buying, it's got 7 years left on it. I mean, 7 years is a nice long window of comfort, when you buy an asset like this. And I'm extremely conservative. This is the only property I've bought in over a year because I saw the greed and all this. And we kissed so many frogs, I call it, kissed so many frogs, looked at so many deals. And now things are starting to open up. And I'm very excited. I think there's going to be some incredible opportunities with some of these, I hate it for these guys that are losing property, but I lost 50 million. They'll get over it like I got over it. And so, but there's going to be opportunity for sure, in my opinion.
That's right. So Rod, I know we're getting close to the top of the time here, and you said you had a few thousand books down there in the library below. Do you have one or two books that maybe in the last, let's say 2 to 3 years you've read that you feel like were impactful and worth listeners checking out?
Well, my love language is gifts. Okay. You've heard the 5 love languages. I had the author on my show, which was a real treat because they've given 1,000 copies of his books. I would highly recommend you get that book if you love anybody, to find out how they feel love the most. So the 5 love languages, great book. But my students get books from me all the time. So I'll give you some of the choices that I send my students. Of course, Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning is a no-brainer, a beautiful human being, and fantastic book. And he's got a new edition of it out right now. So that's why I had him on the show. Another one that I like is The Slight Edge. much, about those little decisions that you make every day that traject your life up or down. They don't mean much that day, but over time they compile either positively or negatively. Another one is Gary Keller's One Thing, a great book. I had Jay Papasan as co-author on the show. A great book about, minimizing your focus to capitalize on different pieces of your life. Gary Keller's One Thing. What else? I'm having a brain fart here. Well, there's a few. I mean, I've given away thousands of copies of Think and Grow Rich. I'm not exaggerating. Thousands, because typically at my boot camps, my live boot camps, you get a copy of that. That's a book you should read a couple times a year, because it is the precursor to all, self-actualization, motivation, mindset, people that have come since then. So Dale Carnegie's, and How to Win Friends and Influence People as well is a fantastic. But these are classics, The Richest Man in Babylon. Those are classics that anybody in business should read.
Yeah, and I'm going to highlight The Slight Edge because that's one you don't hear very often. The Slight Edge, I read when I was pretty flat broke in like 2012, 2013 era. And that compounding effect of your own skill set, your own micro decision, your own competitive advantage in whatever you're doing in life is very powerful. It's more powerful than the compounding of money. And most people are, Warren Buffett, compound the money and let the money compound, but they never acknowledge the compounding effect of your own skill set and the investments that you're making your own mind. Man, The Slight Edge was a good one. I really
another one.
appreciate
I just remembered another one that I give my students called Turning Pro by Steve Pressman, about stop being an amateur. If you're going to go do something, put on the hat that you're a freaking professional. And that is a very powerful decision, epiphany that you need to make if you're going to go do anything. So that's a fantastic book as well, Turning Pro.
Nice. So closing question for you, Rod. What is the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you?
I have a wall behind my desk in one of my offices that is covered with hundreds of thank you cards. And I will tell you, and this is not ego, I get love every single day. I get DMs, I get emails, I get gifts, I get cards. Every single day I get something, and sometimes 10 times. And it becomes addicting, when you impact people's lives. And this is not hyperbole. This is not, guru talk. I mean, this is why I love what I do, because I get love every single freaking day. And it's become really cool. I get recognized now. I got recognized at my grocery store 2 days ago. I got recognized at an island on a cruise last week. And that'll never get old. But I just love the fact that I'm impacting lives. It's a blessed life, like you as well. I know you get a lot of feedback as well. You do a great job with your show. So, I couldn't give you one instance because I get them every single day, brother.
Nice. All right. So I know we touched on the links. Where should listeners go to get more Rod Khleif?
Yeah. Rod's links. That's everything is there. My social is there. There's my Facebook is there. And if you ask me a question, I answer every single question. People are like, is this a bot? And then I have to send a picture of me in my t-shirt or underwear, with my fingers up. No, it's me. I answer every question there, but my boot camp site is there. Again, remember the code DIAMONDS. If you want to come, it's virtual. I don't sell anything. You come for $97. It's a no-brainer. The goal setting workshops at the bottom. Have your kids do your goals. If they're over 10 years old, have your spouse do their goals. Do it together. Super powerful. And if you're interested in investing passively, go to the Cree Cash Flow Club and educate yourself. If you're interested in that particular San Antonio deal, check that webinar out. It'll either be the live webinar or the recording will be there. And there's a free book section that has a ton of free books that are world-class, frankly. Some of them are best in class on different topics that relate to multifamily investing. And and go make it happen for yourself. That's it. Don't let this opportunity pass, because I really believe opportunity is upon us. Great to see you, brother. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, you too. Appreciate you coming on the show, Rod.
All right.